My question, both of you mentioned the importance of networking. I'm doing my PhD at the moment, and I find it, in some respects, quite isolating because most of my friends aren't doing it. I don't understand why sometimes I can't go out with them, or why I'm so focused, and I often get that kind of glazed look from my friends. So I was wondering if you know of any, I don't know, forums or networks that I could possibly join, just to kind of have banter with people that kind of are going through something similar.
I don't, but because I don't know them does not mean to say that they don't exist and they're not out there. It's how to access them. When I was at, formerly at Kensington and Chelsea College, there was a black managers network, and I must try and see, you've got my details how to contact me, but I know they exist, so perhaps getting in touch with them may be the first focal point. They can put you in touch with other kind of black academics, black PhDs, researchers that you can get in touch with. That's the only thing I can suggest off the top of my head, but they're most likely to exist. Or if they don't exist, try and create one.
Is that one today?
Yeah.
Facebook.
Exactly.
That's outdated. That's what I was going to say. I don't actually know any, but you're here.
Yeah, I was going to say I'll be happy to network as well.
Pass a sheet around with email addresses, names, and contact details.
Yeah.
Then someone has to email that information.
Yeah,
I don't mind.
Well, also, actually, can I suggest, because I was meant to bring some flyers for this International Women's Day event, but we didn't get round to it. So potentially, if I could get those names, I could circulate it back, or I can get it from Tony as well, whichever way it goes to. So I don't know who's got a sheet of paper, and then you do it.
Alright, I'm going to pass around a sheet of paper. You've got to use your own pens. But please print your email addresses legibly and clearly on this sheet of paper. Get it back to me and give it to Michelle. You can take it from there. So next question, please. Off you go.
There's so many hands. Which one?
You choose, Michelle.
Okay. Sister Green.
Sorry.
Hair Hepburn.
Sorry.
Hi everyone. I teach in the Africa department at SOAS, and I'm also doing a PhD at Goldsmiths in the sociology department. As far as I can see, the sociology department, I think I'm the only student of African origin in the whole department. There might be one other one, but they're unknown to me, and if there is another one, I can't identify them. So particularly, if there are any PhD students, if they could identify themselves, because really similar to what you said, yeah, I would really like to connect with other, particularly female black PhD students. So please come and talk to me at some point.
You choose, Michelle, so you take it. You choose the person.
Sister at the back, because I saw your hand. Same you, turning around, yeah.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
You had your hand up.
Well, I'm an undergrad student at Birkbeck at the moment, so it's nice to be some people in my ends. But I was in Trinidad recently for 3 weeks on a family holiday, and I think some people talked about isolation before, and I definitely had the feeling that there was barbed comments about me studying. I think also because I'm like the only grand female child, and there's a hierarchical thing sometimes we have in the West Indies with boys and girls. Girls should do this, boys should be doing that. And so I was there for 3 weeks, doing a paper. Every day I was doing a piece of my paper, so I wasn't part of the holiday. And after 2 weeks of these comments about me being English because I'm studying, or as some of you do, PhD students, as you gain more knowledge, become much more expressive of your language, things like how you describe things, and sometimes I felt that I was treated as if I was arrogant because I could know these words, people don't know these words. And after 2 weeks I just broke down, I was in tears, and my mum, bless her, sort of pushed me to finish the paper, and I've got an A in paper if you want to know, but I just want to say if anyone's had that experience, experience because I'm the first person who's done an undergraduate degree in my family, and it's not just isolation in the college, but sometimes it's like when you're looking for support and who you're talking to when you go outside. There's nobody there, and sometimes you feel like, you know, should I be doing this? Am I trying to better myself, and people are just trying to hurt me in some way? So I just want to hear some thoughts on that.
I could respond to that in the sense that when I got into teaching, further education teaching in 1992, I was teaching on access courses. I think access courses in the context of the West, I think they're wonderful, they're brilliant. There's a second chance opportunity for mature students want to get back into academia, aspire to university. Particularly, it's all about widening participation, disadvantage, you know, ethnic minorities, working class people. And I heard a lot of your stories from particularly female students as opposed to male students. Had very few male students, black, white, or any other ethnicity on the access courses. But they would tell me similar stories to you, and it would lead to the access course then pursuing it, then becoming changed individuals and becoming empowered and liberated. It would lead to break up in their marriages, in their relationships with their partners, because they were seeing the world, you know, and analysing the world differently, and analysing themselves, and no longer taking oppression, challenging oppression, and sometimes with family members as well. And some of them were able to heal those rifts with family members and with loved ones, and sometimes they had to walk away as a price for their self-empowerment through their education, their access courses. So there's no right or wrong way, but I'm narrating this from what these students confided to me in tutorials, because sometimes their inability to submit essays or do work was as a result of emotional, spiritual crises and breakdowns that impacted on their underperformance on the course. So they divulged that to me in a pastoral role. I was then let in on to other aspects of their lives, and they would say, well, you know, my husband, my partner says that I've become changed and I should leave, drop out of the course. And this was very shocking to me. But over the 15 years that I taught on the access courses, yes, you know, could only advise them to go and seek counselling, because that's not my role. I'm not employed as a counsellor to kind of counsel them. But I was aware of the race-gender dynamics and power relationships that brings.
While we're here, a minute.
Yes.
Oh.
Should I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm always interested in foundation, and that is because I've reached this far, I can better try to maneuver and make my way through. But when I talk about foundation, I'm thinking specifically about children in primary schools. Because when the foundation is not properly built, that affects the children throughout their lives. So you, as blacks, I'm sure you're aware, who've been in this society for quite some time, that most of our black kids in primary school, from the word go, from the nursery, that is the time that they start to make them feel that they are no good and they are no worth. We have a system where they have, I'm talking from experience, it is from that classroom that they start to put them onto different tables. And it is from that classroom that they start to decide which ones to concentrate upon, which ones not to concentrate upon. And this case come up because at the end of every year, they go to the following year or to the following class. At the end of the day, these children come out of school. They cannot even possibly write a fitting letter. What can you, as PhD students or, professors in academia, what can you do to organize yourselves into a group so that you will undertake a project where, if possible, on a periodic basis, you can visit these primary schools to ask to see the performance of black kids in schools, so that if you see that kids are are not performing properly because of whatever reason, you can take the opportunity to speak either to the administration or to organize something to help the children, so that they will have a better foundation before they even leave the primary school. Because where there's a poor foundation, forget about the future. So if I may propose anything in this meeting, it is my proposal that you people think very seriously about this and see how best you can organize yourself as women, to see how best you can start to visit schools or ask for schools to send you the performance of black kids. Because this is where the problem comes from.
It's not a you is be. Yes. It's not a you is be.
Can I just respond? Often when we are, put into these positions where we're not having to speak, I think I tried to begin by saying, I don't know whether I made the point clear enough, that I'm not speaking from a place of arrogance or a place of like, I'm the expert in something. I will speak on what I am capable of, my experience. There are those who have that access and that, if you like, willingness to maybe go and say, do that part of the longer mission of education in our society, so that they can say, okay, I'm going to now take up the project and I'm going to go into these schools and do that. That's not at the moment my call. I tutor, and I'm part of youth organisation, and I do certain bits. But I'm conscious of that demoralised education system because I've gone through that education system. But I think when we sit here, it becomes, why don't you do this thing? And I think it's why aren't we doing whatever the project is? So I take the point, but I'm reluctant to take up the call to now go and say, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add this other thing, this other layer to myself, and now go and be on a crusade. We're trying to do that already in our different ways, but I think here we have a group of people who are committed already to a certain aspect of the education process, and that's where they put their energies. If the rest of us want to take up another angle of that, each of us will build the dam by doing our parts. That's how I respond to that.
Sorry, can I say something?
Quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. It relates to both of your comments, actually, and it's in terms of really this concept of a glass ceiling that a lot of us put ourselves under, that we can only get so far, and then you're not really supposed to go above that. Yeah, and it sometimes comes within schools, but unfortunately it also sometimes comes within parents. When I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, my mum was taking me to the library every Saturday. I was getting books every single week. Yeah, even Tintin, no Malcolm X. But it was expanding my mind and expanding my vocab. And I think what we need to bear in mind is that one person can't fix everything. Everybody has a part to play in it, even family, even parents, in terms of their support, in terms of what they're given. And unfortunately, sometimes we end up putting ourselves in our own box, just the same way that I did. I'm wearing hip-hop clothes, so how can I lecture? Yeah, and I stopped, and I didn't even bother to pursue that. So I think really, as well, it's not about, okay, who can fix this, but what are we all doing? And you can only do what you can do. And unfortunately, people that are saying, don't do it, or why are you doing it, or you think about yourself and all the rest of it, yeah, because you get those comments, and sometimes you actually need to cut off, yeah. But the best thing to do is actually find forums like this, where you can be with like-minded people who's going to support your cause. And unfortunately, that's what you're going to have to do to try and get yourself through it. But always, always believe in yourself and that you can do it. Yeah?
Shall I ask some questions?
Yeah, there's this lady here and at the back. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll come.
Yes. I want to say a couple of things. The first one was, Ama, you asked in reference to research and grants and the award of grants to minorities like ourselves by the Research Council. I know that this is going to lie. When I did my master's, I did a master's by research at Cranford University. And when I applied because someone I'd gone to boarding school with had introduced me to her professor where she had done her course. And I applied. I just applied and I left the form, and I was willing to pay because I was working. But surprisingly, they awarded me a scholarship from the Research Council. And it turns out when we kind of asked around that all universities get this money they're supposed to give up to students. But a lot of the students, especially the ethnic minorities, don't, because we don't apply because we don't have the money to fund the course. But the first thing is apply for the course first. When you get into the course, there might be money there that you don't even know, like the Research Council, that will be awarded to you. So that's one. So they are giving the money to the black kids, because when I did my master's, so many people that were from, looked like me anyway, even though they hadn't come to university looking for a scholarship, they were being awarded, because somehow the university's got to use this money out that's been given to them. So that's one. And then the second thing I wanted to ask was a question. I'm, 10 years later, I didn't do my PhD. I had an offer to do it, but it was very isolated when I did my master's. Cranfield is in the middle of nowhere, on a whole estate by itself. And after my master's, I thought I had enough. I didn't think I wanted to stay, and I wasn't sure what subject area I wanted to look into. So I went back into work. I was a consultant. I was happy. But in the course of my experience, my professional experience, I've gotten exposed to other areas that I've become quite passionate about. I'm working in an area of sustainable development, energy poverty, and these are the things that stimulate me. And now I'm looking to go back to do a doctorate, and I'm trying to figure a way of converting my work, because what I'm finding is that even though there's a lot of research going on in energy poverty, sustainable development in the African region, it's not being done very haphazard. So everyone's in their own little group doing their own thing, and a lot of it's not being documented. So I'm trying to figure out a way of documenting it, and most importantly, to find a supervisor that I can work with. On the commercial, industrial side, I've been able to find, I have one of the directors at BP that's happy to supervise me, we've come to that agreement. But on the academic side, I'm not quite sure how to find somebody that I can gel with, and someone that's not in the UK, because I don't want to be here to do my doctorate. So I don't know if you can give me any guidelines. I need some help.
In terms of, for me, like if you wanted to locate somebody I was fortunate with my supervisor because there was just one consistent. And I'm thinking, how are you using, social media even nowadays, put out things, I'm looking for, I don't tweet as much as I should do, but there are ways that you can do things like that, like LinkedIn even. I'm saying all these things because I can't but you could put out a call. Sometimes you see emails coming around about call for papers. You could do it the other way around, call for a supervisor, and just send it out on a general mailing list, put down specifically the area of things that you want to do, and you're looking for somebody to supervise that project. That's one way.
Okay, two things come to mind, and then I'm going to ask Dr. Patricia Davies to come in on this question to address it. One, I was thinking in terms of the areas you're interested in, sustainable development, I will propose, are there African scholars who have written on this subject that you would attract you, you'd want to be supervised by them, one, and then two, I'm going to approach, or tell you to approach Cadestria, the Council for, help me out Patricia, the Council for Development and Research in Africa. It's a well-known West African economic social science research forum, very progressive in terms of radical African scholars, and they would, I know Dr. Ibrahim Sal, the Executive Director for Cadestria. I could send him an email, put you in touch, you could perhaps propose somebody. So those off the top of my head are two kind of ways forward for you. Patricia.
Well, just some quick advice. There are some scholarships for, universities do get scholarships now, but it's the way the research councils now allocate funding for PhD research, is that they give money to the universities, and the universities then get all their applications together, rank their students, certainly my department does, and then submit that ranking to the central unit body, the faculty or the division committee, who will then select the students. But I think if you don't want to work in Britain, but there are studentships called, I think they're called case studentships, which is part academic. You can stay in academia and stay in industry and co-supervise. You can, someone from industry can co-supervise you. So that's worth looking at. And if you go on the ESRC website, you might find information about that. The other thing is that I get bombarded with emails all the time from people who want to do their PhDs in Oxford. Okay? And I just have a quick look at the topics, and some of them are just pointless. I don't want to give somebody a topic. I mean, in the sciences, you can normally get onto a research program, say cancer research or something like that. In the social sciences, it's often the students coming with their idea, and you might be working in a related field, and then you get interested. But it has to be the student's topic, because they're going to have to work on it for 4 years. And in those lonely periods, if I've given you something and you're not interested in it, you're not going to finish it. Right? So I tend to look at, you need a developed topic. You need to know what you want to work on, and you need to do some reading around it, and you want to say, show in that email that you send out, I'm passionate about this. Do you look like the person who should be supervising me? And I'd like to come and meet you if you're in Britain. I'd like to come and meet you to talk to you about it. Or is it possible to have a Skype meeting or something like that? But it has to be, you have to do some work in order to be, I mean, I just look at them and it looks as if I'm going to be doing a lot of the work in preparing this person so that they can get a scholarship, because it has to be fantastic in order for you to get a scholarship. Right? Then I don't do it. Sometimes I encourage, if I see someone promising, I will encourage them and nurture them and so on. And often they go off and get scholarships in other universities, which is actually good in a sense. But it means that I've expended a lot of time on them. So you have to come up with your topic. And if you don't want to do sustainable development in Britain, you can look to the US, MIT or somewhere like that, and also Holland, or one of the Scandinavians or German universities where you don't have to pay fees at the moment, I think.
Yes, apparently.
All right, next question.
So thank you for being here and sharing your experiences and everyone else actually. To Michelle, I was just wondering if you could say a little bit more about performance. You mentioned that.
No.
You mentioned that in the talk. Particularly around the gaze that one might experience, and how you manage to negotiate and still manage to express yourself and be heard despite that gaze. And maybe if you had any experiences of how your particular social coordinates led to validation or invalidation of what it was that you were sharing. So that's question one for Michelle. And question two was if there's just anyone in the room that is doing any work that relates to mindfulness and working with young people. I'd really like to speak to anyone that's doing that.
Sorry, we can hear. What was the second question? If there was anybody working?
You're expected to be, I'm talking about, specifically at the time I was talking about university in Scotland, the experience of performing the characterisation or the stereotype of being black, and a black woman, so you have to be constantly laughing, even though that whatever was said by the European is not funny. They just laugh, and so you're like, okay, I'm supposed to laugh as well. So this feeling of like not being able to be yourself, and yourself is, I'm going to talk however way I want, unhindered, freely, I'm going to be myself. Which with the continental African students, what I was experiencing was I could be, it was very challenging, because again we were coming from different places, but we were free enough to be real. So when I talk about the European gaze, it's that gaze that is constantly expecting you to not quite be, not be yourself, but to be their self, or project their image back at you. So you have to that eventually traumatizes you. Fanon speaks about this, Black Skin, White Farm. And so, yeah, just having to go through that experience constantly. I mean, some would argue that I put myself in that situation because I left London and I went to Scotland, and so therefore, what was I expecting? But again, I expect to just be treated as a human being. So I mean, we speak about the fact that the same experience that Fallon describes in Black Skin would happen in that Scottish experience. So you would be walking down the streets, young children double take. And I used to find this odd because I'm thinking, I'm not in Japan where my niece later went, I'm in UK. So how are they looking, shocked that they're seeing Africans? There were 1 or 2 Africans out, there. So I couldn't understand this constancy of being looked at in a certain way and being expected to not quite be myself. As I said about when I wrote that paper, I was expected to write in a sort of a standard conforming way to say, this is how I'm reading that. But really I was saying, I'm observing this thing, and this observation was based on being an African and identifying with what Toni Morrison was dealing with. So there's this constancy of feeling like you're not quite yourself. The other part of the question was something about social coordinates.
Yeah, I mean, this idea of being, in particular, it's like the subject of enunciation. So the person that's speaking, what they're saying, the validity of what they're saying depends on their social coordinates. So I've experienced, like in the workplace, in academic situations, where someone next to me repeats exactly what I've said, but because they have a completely different set of social coordinates, all of a sudden it sounds like, oh, that's how people.
Yeah.
But when I say it, it doesn't, and that's because it's being heard to a particular thing.
Yeah. That's right. I mean, how I deal with it. After a while, like I said, for me, the part I talk about my spiritual fortitude is that I got to that point where I would say what came from my core. And if I said it came from that core, I was no longer on that shaky ground of trying to do the performance and doing what, buffooning. I was now, I know where the foundation is, I know where the root is, I have a sense of grappling with my spirituality and my identity. So I'm speaking from that space, and I'm writing from that space, and I would say that that's one of the most important things that I've understood about the embarking on doing a PhD or doing any kind of subject. You need to have the passion for it, and you need to also be honest with yourself about how truly you can commit to it and how good it's going to be. Because I think sometimes we would be less than mediocre and want to be like, or actually I've had lots of situations where people aren't, or fellow students aren't prepared to do the work. So they want to just have the year, so 3 years of not doing the work, but just there's the degree. And magically, wow, I've got a degree, but I actually haven't done the work. So over a period of time, it was about developing my integrity properly. And so when I speak and when I write, it's writing from something that I'm interested in, from my core and my identity. So that's what I'm passionate about, that's what I'm interested in.
All right, we're into extra time now, so next question quickly.
This, yes, and then this brother there with the glasses at the back, and then this side.
Sorry, is that Marcel?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for that event. It's been fantastic. I want to ask 2 things. The first thing that I wanted to ask, which was about this business of the hourly pay. Quite a few people have mentioned that, and I just wanted to know, can you just say a bit more about how that actually ends up being as a fuller picture? So, for example, how, in terms of the sort of ratio of how much you're earning as opposed to somebody who's salaried, and also, are there any other implications? Do you get sick pay or those types of things? So I don't know. So that's what I'm asking, and just sort of, and also how wide scale is it? Because it's disturbing. A number of people have said this. So how wide scale is that for Black people? And then the second thing that I just wanted you to speak about is this issue of mental health and this soul-destroying aspect, which again has been mentioned, and just sort of, is that quite common for Black people to have breakdowns or these types of things? Thank you.
Okay, the hourly paid lecturer, yes, it's going to be on the long term, this is not going to be equitable. It's not going to be the same as if you're salaried, because as I've said, roughly, okay, so you could get paid, breakdown, you could get paid £40, it's £40 an hour, which you go, wow, I'm getting paid £40 an hour. But lots of things have got to come out of that. And in terms of sick pay, you don't get any of that, any sick pay, and no holiday, nothing. It's just those hours.
So say like, for example, are you getting, you know, like like 2/3 of a salaried person or what have you? Do you have a rough ratio?
No, I don't have the rough breakdown of it, but I know that how I work it out is that ultimately they will be getting paid over that period of time when they're so if I was fractional, I would still be doing like part-time. I would still get paid in the breaks, in the holidays, the 3 months off. I would still get paid. And actually, there is a push for hourly paid lecturers to get that. There is the unions are fighting for that to happen, because that's what should be happening. Wide scale is very wide scale. At London Metropolitan University, a lot of the lecturers, because of the nature of the university at the moment, there are a lot of hourly paid lecturers because of that reason. So even though I don't have that ratio, I know that logistically it makes sense for them to just have us just churned out like this, and so they don't have to be as committed to us in the long term as possible. So when I'm in that room, there's a room that they've assigned for us, which is another nightmare. But most of the people in there are minority ethnics that come into that space, and a lot of them are now doing social work type teaching. So, and the other one, in terms of mental disposition, I'm thinking that there are some times where this is overt, but then there's a silent, I think there's a silent mental breakdown that impacts on what Ama was describing about people not being able to complete, having difficulties generally with the whole studying process. And that is, to me, it's a silent mental breakdown. What the sister was talking about, even when you're dealing with your family, you do not understand that why are you studying? Why are you going to Scotland? Why do you speak that way? Who do you think you are? And all these kinds of questions that, my niece at the moment is going through what I would call one of these silent mental breakdowns. And as I see her, I'm anxious when I look at her, because she's doing a teacher training course. And it's very intense and it's very isolating, and there's very few families who are supporting her. So for me, it seems as though she's very much in that in-between space. If she doesn't get that right support, any minute now, you're just keeping it. I mean, we're strong black women, so we don't actually recognise when we're struggling, recognise when we're suffering, recognise when there is a problem, when we are depressed. So I think it is quite frequent.
That's got to be the last question now.
Well, Tony, there was this guy right at the back with glasses, and there were these two people here and somebody...
We need to hear from the brothers.
No, I don't ask questions. I think ladies down there don't want to ask questions. I'm fine. They don't ask questions first.
It's a very long story, cut it short, but essentially I'm now working as editor-in-chief of Pambazika News. I write journalistically as well as scholarly academic work. So I'm not lecturing, teaching right now. I haven't been for the last year. I have done some teaching in the community, very much into community teaching, kind of reaching young people and youth, not primary school, but young people, because I do feel that our young people, many of them are lost and they need to reconnect with their history, and I'm very passionate about that. So I'm not affiliated to any institution, and I find that quite interesting when I submit academic articles. They want to know which is your academic, which institution are you academically affiliated with. So my title, or the title for those of us who are not affiliated to any academic institution, is independent scholar. So that is what I am now, until I basically find a job in an institution. An institution will take me for my, radical, progressive views. and they are far and few between in the UK. But perhaps we need to set up our own African university. Historically black colleges and universities in the States, perhaps that's come from a different specific history, but perhaps we need to, focus our financial, economic resources, our intellectual knowledge, administration, there are administrators, and we need to. It's a long-term project goal, but we have the academics and administrators here, and that's perhaps what we need to do.
Can we start? Tony, I've just got something to request of Tony, that one of the series, because I know you've got 6 unfilled sessions, that some of the threads that are coming out of today relate to the kind of the difference between schooling and education, and I feel that we need to look at that intensively. So if you can find people to speak, I'm prepared to put my tuppence worth in there, and anybody else,
I can tell you that, first of all, this event will be repeated with different speakers. We'll also give an extra hour to do the amount of questions that come from me, and also we'll give time to the people who are actually thinking about setting the network, which you mentioned just now. So it's going to be repeated, more time, same venue, and we'll actually get to those issues. And also there are 9 more lectures to go, and we'll find time to include the one that you just kind of mentioned there. I should also mention that on Thursday, 20th of February, this Thursday, there'll be a talk on Indigenous people of Uganda called the Bantu, is that right? Batwa, right? Researched by journalist Felicity Hayward. She spent time with the band Batwa and recorded their stories. The venue is at SOAS main building, room 4421, 5 p.m, Russell Square Tube. And as far as getting more information on this kind of event is concerned, if you want to come to more events like this, please check out, what's it called? The website. Because the website will give you information about other events like this, including this event, but other films and talks. So I'm just going to put the screen back up there, and you can then check it yourself. But that is it for now. Thanks to Michelle and Anna.